So let's go back. I want to fill in a little bit of the missing gap, and then we'll start to think about winding this thing down. But you mentioned you're writing in high school. You're there in the library putting your fantasy novel together, and then you don't start writing seriously again until 2007. So what happens in those missing years? Are you writing on and off?
Oh no, I was writing. I wrote 44 novels, unpublished novels, first drafts throughout all those years. I just wrote for pleasure. And so I just wrote and wrote and wrote. I looked at a few times I looked at publication, but I think the thing I always thought that my work wasn't quite ready to be published. And I wasn't sure what to do about it. As I got older, I haphazardly revised it. As I got much older, I tried to take this even more seriously. I thought, okay, I've been writing for a long time. I think I'd like to get published now. I mean, I think this is ready. I think I have something I really believe in that I could see being under my name. So I did look for, let's see, it was around 2007 when I really started trying to write for publication. And I had two different novels that I queried. One of them briefly had an agent who didn't like my revision, so we parted ways. And at that point, I had rewritten the novel according to what she wanted into something. I didn't like it either, and it was a mess. So put that aside. That was historical fiction for adults. And then I had another middle grade that nobody made an offer on, which I can understand why. It needs a lot of work. But and then yeah, so I did try at that point. I was thinking about that a little bit more seriously in the early 2000s too, but trying to write, the perfect novel. I think that can be a trick for a lot of people, being too hard on yourself and your work before you share it with anyone. You see, I was afraid to share my work with people because I didn't want anyone to tell me it was bad, and you have to be able to take that. Not that it's bad, no one should tell you that your work is bad, but you have to be able to take criticism, constructive criticism, and to see it as an opportunity. And I think I needed to just get to that place where I was ready for it, which is still hard, though. I think it's hard for every writer I know. When my editor sends me the first edit letter, you just feel this gut punch and, okay, get your glass of water. I usually do something else while I know it's sitting in my inbox before I sit down and read it, and make sure I'm in the right frame of mind where I can go through and not be too crushed by whatever I read. And a good editor will start with compliments. This is what I love about your work. These are 3 things that are fantastic. Here are some things that I think we could improve. And, here's a positive way of telling you all that's wrong with your novel. And then at the end, this is fantastic. Though overall, I see a lot of promise in this. And here's one more thing I loved about it. Looking forward to working with you on this. The sandwich model, that makes it a lot easier to take.
So what changed? When did that come to a point where you got at least to the point where, even though it's no fun, you could take that criticism and be published?
Well, I think I met my husband at a writers' conference, and we're both writers, and so we began to exchange manuscripts then, and have exchanged manuscripts ever since. And we're very good at being gentle with each other, and I think he helped me a lot be ready for this, because I know that he would never try to hurt me, through my writing. He'd never try to tell me that my writing was awful. He would never use those words, for one thing. But he will be honest. I mean, we reached a wonderful stage where, God, he's so helpful. I mean, in Secret of the Shadow Beasts, he read the first draft and he said, this character Wilfred, who's Nora's best friend, her gaming friend, he said, I think you need to do something more with him, because you have a really good character here. Maybe Nora could, I don't know, communicate with him somehow, call him. Just how could she think about him even as the story goes on? Because you start out with this tight friendship. Where does that go? And I was so glad he mentioned that to me, because when he said, how could she still be in touch with him? I thought gaming, the chat through the game. And so suddenly she brought a game, the game that they play, along with her to the castle, the retrofitted castle where she's training to be a knight who fights the monsters. And she's able to chat with him. And those chats with Wilfred throughout the book are such powerful moments of Nora connecting with her home, but also her managing this friendship that she had before, the person she was before, and that changing friendship, which reaches kind of heartbreaking points in some parts of the book. I mean, I love those chats, and I'm just really grateful for that. So I think I've seen what happens. I think having that connection with somebody who could sensitively give me criticism, but also see how my work would improve. I think that was it, when I really saw that happening. And when criticism, somehow I've managed to reach a point where I'm open to criticism in such a way that it is inspiring. That when somebody says, this isn't working, I think, okay, do I agree? Often I do. How can I make this work? You know, how can I fix this? So, and that's when I come up sometimes with great ideas. And for Secret of the Shadow Beast, I remember I came up with a truly horrible idea, and I rewrote the whole novel with this horrible idea that I thought would please my editor. I sent the novel to my agent, and I said, before I send it back to my editor, I'm not sure about this angle. What do you think? And my agent wrote back and said, this is actually what I see underneath your novel. This is what I see underneath that theme. This government. The government is the most interesting part, not all this extra fantasy that you put on top. And I thought that was originally the point, and I went in a different direction. So that criticism from my agent helped so much, because that brought my novel right to the correct track, the track that ended up being the published book. So having a taste of seeing it work, that helped. I don't know how other people can reach that stage. It just, I tell my kid audiences when I do school talks to try to be open to criticism, be true to your work, know what's important to you in your work, you know, be willing to accept criticism, but also feel empowered to reject criticism if you feel that they're not right. But do try to at least listen, because you may find that it's inspiring, that it does help. And know that it's almost always, for most people, given to you with positive encouragement, positive intentions. It's meant to help. And so, you know, see it as a learning process. It's hard to internalize that, though, because it is hard when somebody tells you your work isn't perfect.
You're not perfect. Yeah, sure.
I know, because we writers all say it's us. It's not just our work. And that's that being able to separate yourself. But how can you separate yourself from your work when you're putting yourself in your characters? Your characters are all parts of you. Your story is part of you. That's why criticism is so hard to take, because it is personal. You can't help but to be personal.
Well, I find that a little bit of time helps. Like, don't read this immediately after I wrote it. I can't hear your criticism then. Let me start another project. Let me get a little further on something else, and then I'll come back with fresh eyes, and I'll be able to agree that, yes, okay, fine, maybe you have a little bit of a point here. Although when you listen to people and their criticism is wrong, it's still worth listening to, because they may be circling the actual problem. Yes. And they're not as brilliant as us, so they they can't identify it, but they can at least help us, the brilliant writers, find it and fix it.